Well, hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to this English lesson about agriculture, about farming, about what it's like to be a farmer. Let's get started. So, a farm. A farm is simply a place where food is either grown or animals are raised for food. Notice I use two different words there, and I'll get to that in a little while why there are two different ones. But a farm is a place out in the country. So in our country of Canada, we have cities, but people also live out in the country. And generally, people out in the country have a farm. So the farm is the place where the food is produced. Yes, I do have the same microphone, but I took off this little piece because I'm not outside. So yes, same microphone. Sorry, I just saw that in the chat. The act of doing that, we would say, is farming. Okay, so that person is farming on that road. I wonder what that farmer is growing. I'm sure he's farming every moment of the day. Sorry, that was a bad example. But the act of doing it is called farming. The general term for farming is agriculture. Okay, so when you talk about all of the things that you can do that involve the growing of food or the raising of animals, the proper term, the official term is agriculture. So in Canada, we do not have a government division for farming. We have a government division for agriculture. It's actually a ministry. It's called the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. So agriculture is your most formal term for farming. I do want to pause and say hi to the 300 people that are watching. I'm actually surprised that many people have joined already. I didn't think this would be a popular topic, but I'll tell you a little secret. I never know which topics are going to be the most popular. Sometimes when I do a topic that I think will be popular, it isn't. And sometimes when I do a topic that I think won't be popular, it is. So I see in the chat someone saying, is farming like a profession? Yes, that's correct. Generally, if you live on a farm, you will probably live in a house, but we actually call it a farmhouse. So a farmhouse is the house that's on the same property. A farmhouse is like the room I'm sitting in. I am living in a farmhouse right now. There's nothing different about a farmhouse compared to a regular house. It just happens to be on a farm. So on a farm, the type of house you would have there is a farmhouse. Some people really like farmhouses because they are generally bigger houses with lots of space, and they usually have really big kitchens. I think because long ago farmers usually had lots of kids, and so they needed a big kitchen to feed all their kids. The person who does the farming is called a farmer. Now, there is no gender-specific word for farmer in English. If you are a man or a woman, you are a farmer. I am a farmer. Jen is a farmer. We are both farmers. So the person who does the farming is called a farmer. Let me get to the next slide here. And then in a moment, we will start on some questions. The other building that you will see on a farm is a barn. Another thing you'll see on a farm is something called a silo. You may have seen silos in some of my videos as well. The silo is the big round structure, the tower that you see on a farm. Don't get confused though. This is a grain bin. So the shorter structure that's usually made out of metal, we would call a grain bin. And the taller structure that you see here, we call a silo. Often, I'm going to call them city people. When you live in the country, you sometimes refer to people from the city as city people. So sometimes city people get these two names confused. So this is a silo. A silo is used to store feed for the winter. So oftentimes farmers will put what's called hay or haylage in the silo to feed later in the winter. Lolly has given a super chat for Dave and Todd. By the way, thank you so much for all the super chats and everything from last week for Dave and Todd. I haven't told them the total yet, but they're pretty happy, or they will be pretty happy. Again, this is a grain bin. So this is used to store things like wheat or corn, what we call grain crops. So there is definitely a difference between the two. You will also find a building called a machine shed or a drive shed. So this is a place where the farmer will keep all of his or her tractors and equipment. So we on my property as well, when you watch my videos, sometimes you'll see the barn in the background. Sometimes you'll see the machine shed in the background. It has two names. You can call it a machine shed or a drive shed. Most farms also have a shop or workshop. And I wanted to put this one in here because the word shop in English has a number of different meanings. So shop can also be the short form of workshop. So my father-in-law, who also lives on a farm, has a workshop. In his workshop, he has a welder so that he can weld steel together. So if his farm equipment breaks, he can fix it. So he has a workshop, or we just call it a shop, where he can fix his equipment. Let's see here. You might also on a farm see a chicken coop. So chickens get their own special name for the little building that they live in. A chicken coop can be outside, like the one you see in this picture, but a chicken coop can also be inside of a barn. Earlier, Nate Indy asked if I had chickens. We do have chickens. We have 10 chickens. Our chickens are in a chicken coop, and the chicken coop is inside the barn. Some farms will have chicken coops outside the barn. So that is where the chickens live, in the chicken coop. Notice I'm just going through all the different structures that you will see on a farm. So just a quick review. There's a farmhouse, there's a barn, silo, grain bin, machine shed, shop or workshop, and chicken coop. I think that's all of them. There's a few other things you'll see on a farm as well. If you have animals that graze, grazing is when animals eat grass in a field or pasture. But if you have animals like cows or sheep or goats, those are considered grazing animals. They sometimes will be in a pasture, especially during the nicer times of the year. We have a pasture along the river, and sometimes our goats and sheep are out on the pasture. But a pasture is a large field with mostly grass in it where animals go to graze. So I'm not sure if you know the word graze, but those are called grazing animals. Animals that eat grasses. Let me see here. That pasture is usually surrounded by a fence. A fence is a structure that you build so that animals can't get out of the pasture. When I was a kid, sometimes the cows would get out. So when I was a kid, we had a dairy farm. We had cows that we milked. And sometimes the cows would get out because the fence was broken. So the fence is what keeps the animals inside of the pasture or the field. Hey, I just want to pause and say hi to the 447 people watching this lesson. If you're new here, there is a subscribe button right there. You should click it, and then you will get notified when I do a new English lesson. And then the general term, let me make this a little bigger. The general term for any area of land where you grow things is called, sorry, I'm just going to check something here. I think one of my slides is missing. Nope, it's there. It'll come in a sec. A big area of land where you grow crops, where you grow plants, is called a field. So farmers have many fields around their farmhouse, and around their farm, and around their barn. I'm getting farm and barn mixed up. Yeah, Nate Indy's asking if Oscar runs to kind of chase the grazing animals. He's not super good at it. He's not a good herding animal at all. I just talked about fences. There is a saying in English, good fences make good neighbors. And I'm just curious, let me know in the chat if you have a similar phrase in your language. What this means is that when two people live beside each other and when they are neighbors, they are nicer to each other if there is a fence dividing their properties. So we have a saying in English, good fences make good neighbors. And what we mean by this is, if you keep your things separate from your neighbor's things with a fence, it usually means that you're happier. We even say this at work. If you have a desk that touches another person's desk, sometimes people will put up a little divider because good fences make good neighbors. Sometimes when you have your own space, it just works better. One thing, if you have livestock, if you have animals, you will have manure. So there's no nice way to say this. Animals eat, and then animals pee and animals poop. So you end up with manure. We put straw into our pens and our animals poop. And then when we clean out our pens, we put all of the manure in the manure pit. Some farms have a manure pile. It's just a different way of describing it. But when you have animals, you will have manure. Now, the good thing about manure is that if you let manure sit for 1 year, it composts and it turns into a really nice soil amendment. It turns into really nice fertilizer. So if you have livestock, you will definitely have manure. But if you don't have a lot of manure, you will use fertilizer. So fertilizer comes in a bag. It's granular. That means it's small little pieces, and you can just spread that on your land. Let's get into some of the things that you will see on a farm. Farmers always have farm machinery or farm equipment. You can use both names. I have a lot of farm machinery. In order to operate a farm, you need equipment, you need machinery, you need machines that will help you do the things that you need to do. So I'm not going to go over all the different types of farm equipment, just about 4. So if you're not interested in farm equipment, bear with me. Most farmers have a tractor or multiple tractors. We have 2 tractors. And depending on the job that you need to do. Large farms, my neighbor's farm, they have 6 tractors. They have a really, really big farm. My other neighbor has 5 tractors. They have a really, really big farm. But a tractor is something that the farmer drives. So just like you drive a car, in English, you drive a tractor. Okay, I'm going to drive the tractor over there. Oh, he's out driving the tractor in the field. So if you live on a farm, you will have a lot of tractors. Anything you pull behind a tractor, first of all, you pull it. So you pull things with the tractor. We would call equipment, or we would call it an implement. Okay. So you could say there are a lot of farm implements, or there's a lot of farm equipment, or there's a lot of farm machinery. Another type of piece of farm equipment is a combine. So I didn't talk about this word last week. But someone asked about different pronunciations. This is a combine or a combine harvester. We usually just call it a combine. And what's tricky about this is it looks like the word combine. So you can combine 2 words together to make a new word. You can combine ingredients to make something in your kitchen. But this is a combine. Notice the slightly different pronunciation. You can combine 2 things, but this is a combine. I'm not even sure if you can hear it. But it's definitely a slightly different pronunciation. But a combine is used to harvest. So combines are interesting pieces of farm equipment because they are incredibly expensive. It is the most expensive thing you can buy on a farm. I don't have a combine. My neighbor has a combine. He comes and harvests my crops for me, and I pay him because a combine costs probably almost $1 million for a combine now. And interestingly, it's only used a little bit. It's used just a little bit in the fall and summer to harvest crops. Many farmers will have different types of wagons. So they'll have wagons like the top wagon here, we would call just a wagon. This one we would call a grain wagon. So if you are harvesting, the crop would go in the grain wagon. I could talk about farm equipment all day, but I thought those were the ones that I should go over in an English lesson. So let's look at the different types of farms, but give me 1 second before we do that. Let me go back. I'm losing track of what I'm doing. Let's look at a few different types of farms, then I'll do some questions. So if you raise cows to milk them, you have a dairy farm, okay? So a dairy farm has a large herd of cows. They milk the cows once or twice a day. 2 or 3 times a day, not once. I grew up on a dairy farm. I should know this. They milk the cows 2 or 3 times a day, and the milk goes in a large tank, and a truck comes and picks the milk up every other day. But interestingly enough, most dairy farms now in Canada have a robot that does the milking. So my grandfather milked by hand. My father and mother had milk machines that milk the cows. They had to put the machine on the cow. My neighbors have a robot. The cow simply goes into a certain spot and a robot milks the cows. So that's what a dairy farm is. If you have cows that you are raising for beef, for in North America, the fast food industry needs beef. People barbecue a lot and they need beef. So you would have a beef farm, okay? So a dairy farm is for milk. A beef farm is for beef or meat production. You might have a chicken farm. There are two kinds of chicken farms. There are chicken farms that produce chickens for meat. So my other neighbor has a chicken farm and they raise chickens for meat. You can also have a chicken farm where you have chickens for egg production. If I go down the road a number of kilometers, there is another farmer and he has a chicken farm and they produce eggs, okay? You might have a hog farm or pig farm. There are two different names. If I, sorry, I'm not sure why. Just one sec here. All of a sudden my camera decided not to focus on me, so I just fixed that. If I look across the river, there is a farm over there and it is a pig farm. It is a farm that raises pigs in order to produce meat, and that meat is called pork, okay? So again, interestingly enough, when you go to the grocery store, if you want to buy meat and if it's from a pig, we call it pork. And then there are some goat farms in Ontario. There aren't a lot. Goat farms can be either farms where they milk the goats so that they can have goat milk and make goat cheese, or it might be a farm where they raise goats for meat. By the way, goat meat is becoming more and more popular in Canada, largely because many people immigrate to Canada and they come from countries where it's very common to eat goat meat. It's not common for my family to eat goat meat. I think because we came from Holland originally, it's just not part of something we eat, but it is a very common meat. So, and then let me see here. You might have a sheep farm. So a sheep farm obviously is a farm where you have sheep. There are not, I don't know any farms where they milk sheep. I know in most countries there are farms where they milk sheep and they make cheese out of the sheep milk. In Canada, there are not very many farms that milk sheep. Almost all of our sheep are raised for meat. There's also something called a vegetable farm. So let me make this a little bit bigger. A vegetable farm, notice I went to a different country for my picture this time because I thought I should be a little bit more equal. I picked mostly pictures about Canada, but I thought I should pick pictures from around the world. A vegetable farm grows vegetables, and I forgot to put a slide in for fruit farm. So a fruit farm grows fruit, a vegetable farm grows vegetables. There are many vegetable farms north of Toronto. I know that might seem strange. It's somewhat a little bit colder north of Toronto, but there are a lot of vegetable farms in a place called Bradford, Ontario. They just have really good soil and they grow things like onions and carrots and all those kinds of things. So again, just imagine there's a slide that says fruit farm. A fruit farm is a place where you grow fruit. A fruit farm would grow things like peaches and apples and pears and plums and nectarines, all of the different types of fruit. We don't grow bananas in Canada. So again, thank you if you are from a country that grows bananas. If you have a banana farm and you are watching this video, you are my hero. You are awesome. But in Canada, we can't grow things like that. You might have a flower farm. You might recognize this. So you can see in this picture, you can see my drive shed or machinery shed or machine shed. You can see that I can't put my hand over top of the picture, can I? You can see the two silos. You can see the barn. And then in front, you can see the flowers. So there are farms that grow flowers. We would call them a flower farm. Now, I forgot to put fruit farm, but I did remember to put orchard. An orchard is a place where you grow fruit. So if you have a bunch of trees in a certain place on your farm and you are growing apples or pears or other kinds of fruit, we would call it an orchard. Orchards are really nice places to work because it's almost always shady. That's probably the best thing about orchards. Um, let's see here. I'm just checking where I am. Oh, yes. And then there's, of course, vineyards. So close to me, I live close to an area where you can grow grapes. A vineyard is a place where you can grow grapes. So close to me, probably about half an hour's drive, there are many, many vineyards. I live close to Lake Ontario, and Lake Ontario is a really big body of water that creates a microclimate to the south of it. A microclimate is when the weather is a little warmer or cooler because there is a lake or body of water close by. So I live close to Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario creates an area where you can grow grapes in Ontario. So there are a lot of vineyards. They grow grapes for eating. We call them table grapes. They also grow grapes to make grape juice and to make wine. There are a lot of wineries close to me. So if you ever come to Canada and you are someone who likes drinking wine, you will probably visit that area because there are a lot of wineries where you can go and you can taste wine. Let me get to the next slide. We have a phrase in English called farm fresh. When you go to the grocery store, sometimes you buy food that is farm fresh. This simply means that the food went from the farm to the grocery store as quickly as possible. If you really want farm fresh food, though, if you want food that is really fresh, I would buy it at a farmer's market. The farmer's market where we sell flowers, there are several farmers there. Oh, the fly is back. There are several farmers there that sell fruit and that sell vegetables. And I would say if you want farm fresh food, if you want food that's just recently harvested or recently picked, I would go and buy it at a farmer's market. That's probably your best place to get it. Currently, there is a lot of anger in North America because of what's called factory farming. So in Ontario, Canada, we have family farms, but we also have farms that have grown so big that they are called factory farms. This is true in the United States as well and other parts of the world. A factory farm grows food as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but doesn't always care too much about the animals that they are raising. First of all, there are no factory farms growing vegetables. There are no factory farms growing fruit. Factory farms are always farms that are raising some kind of livestock. So right now in Canada, there are people who would like laws changed so that factory farming can be changed to be more friendly to the animals that are being raised. So you might hear or read the phrase factory farming when you are studying English. Anything that an animal on a farm eats is simply called feed. Okay, so there's chicken feed, there's pig feed, there's rabbit feed, there's every kind of feed that you can think of. We buy our feed from the feed mill. When you go to the feed mill, you simply buy sheep feed and goat feed. We also feed our animals hay as well, and they also do eat on pasture. Anything that a farmer grows is called a crop. Okay, so even though we grow flowers, we say that, that's a pretty good crop of flowers this year. It's a pretty good crop of soybeans this year. It's a pretty good crop of wheat this year. The crop's doing well out in the field. The crop is doing well. Sorry, I'm shortening my words a little bit. And so Madi says people feed. Yeah, we don't have people feed. You don't go to the people feed store to buy feed for people. But yes, anything that a farmer grows is called a crop. When you put seeds in the ground, you plant them. So my neighbor comes and he will plant my crops for me. Okay. So the verb is to plant. So he plants my crops. He puts the seeds in the ground for me. When he comes in the fall with his combine, he harvests the crop. So again, at the beginning of the growing season, so the time where you grow things is called the growing season. At the beginning, we plant our crops. At the end, we harvest. I'm going to jump to the chat. Brent says, I'm sad. This will be the last Friday live stream I will be able to attend for a while. School starts next week. So Brent, have a great school year, first of all. And then second, I'm not sure what time I will be doing the Friday live streams. starting in a few weeks. Next week will be the same. The week after will be the same. But at a certain point, I'm not sure what time this will happen at. It might be a little earlier or a bit later. We'll see. So anyways, let's get to the next slide here. If you live in a place where it does not rain very much, you will have to irrigate your crops. So when you irrigate, it means you use pumps and pipes to put water onto your crop. Almost hit my microphone. That is called irrigating. Okay. We irrigate our flowers. We do not irrigate our bigger crops. We just do not have the equipment to do it. So our flowers, we irrigate. If you watch the video about learning, the tour of the farm that I did a couple weeks ago, maybe Todd or Dave can find that video. But a couple weeks ago, I did a video about our flower farm. And in that video, I show you some of the ways that we irrigate. When you irrigate, it means that you put water on the crop so that it will grow. And then just to review, sorry, I don't know who this guy is, but I thought it was a funny picture. When you grow plants, you use the word grow. Okay, so we grow flowers, but we raise chickens. Okay, so notice the difference. If you're talking about plants, you use the verb grow. So we grow flowers. I grow soybeans. We grow hay. Anything that comes out of the ground that is a plant, we grow. Vladimir says, it's perfect when you have rains to irrigate. Yes, it's really dry right here, right now, though, Vlad. We're a little worried that it needs to rain soon. Not for the flowers, but for the bigger crops. So again, you grow plants, you raise animals, okay? So he raises ducks, he raises cows, he raises pigs. That is the difference there. And then here we go. The difference between an acre and a hectare, or a hectare. So we in Canada measure In Canada, we measure all of our pieces of land in acres. Okay, so an acre is approximately 200 by 200 feet, 208 by 208. In most parts of the world, you measure in hectares. A hectare is about 2.5 acres. So an acre is smaller. But if you buy a farm, you say, how many acres is that farm? Okay, and then you buy the farm by the acre. When you sell a farm, you say, okay, 200 acre farm for sale, X amount of dollars per acre. If you live in a different part of the world where you use the metric system, you would use hectares, which is 100 meters by 100 meters. But yes, there are certainly different ways to measure the size of the farm.